Welcome back to another episode of How to Become an Obstacle Buster. I'm your host, Warren Wandling, the show that's dedicated to bringing leaders and entrepreneurs strategies, tips, and resources to overcome their obstacles, to build resilience, and achieve success. Hey, if this is your first time listening or you've been part of our community for a while, thank you for tuning in today. Before I introduce you to my guest today, I want to make sure that you're aware of a new resource to help you to be resilient. It's our private Facebook community called Leadership with Purpose. So you can either search in groups in Facebook and search Leadership with Purpose. And I'll also make sure that link is in the show notes as well. In our community, I share strategies, tips, and resources so you can step into less stress, greater profit, and experience the work you love. It's also a great place to connect with other like-minded leaders. So I look forward to seeing you in our community. Our sponsor for the show today is Audible. If you love listening to podcasts, I know you're going to love Audible like I do. It's a great way to be able to listen to books that you want to read this year. So if you're not already subscribed to Audible, let me get you a free book and a free 30-day trial. The book that I recommend is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. By simply visiting warrenwandling.com/audible, you can grab your free book and your free 30-day trial to Audible. Again, that's warrenwandling.com/audible. WARRENWANDLING.com/AUDIBLE. Today's guest is Chad Sanderson, who has been leading sales and marketing teams to success for over 20 years through his proven and predictable ValueSelling Framework. Chad, who has been named a top 5 emerging training leader, who has worked in sales, built teams, and achieved targets both within organizations and as a consultant. He cuts through the outdated theory-based fluff so often contributed to sales training and gets down to the nitty-gritty with a raw, no BS perspective to look at what's working and what's not working, and where there may be opportunities to drive predictable revenue growth through sales optimization. Well, welcome to the show, Chad.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. As you know, on How to Become an Obstacle Buster podcast, we provide our listeners different strategies, tips, and resources, helping them to overcome their obstacles, to build resilience, to achieve success. So really to start that conversation today, as an award-winning sales, marketing, and business strategy consultant with 20 years of proven results, driving revenue growth, facilitating marketing expansion, and building high-performance teams, tell us about your business.
Yeah, so we work with organizations in multiple industries, everything from, we have clients that sell paper cups to clients that sell parts to nuclear reactors to everything in between. But we work with these organizations to drive a consistent framework for communication across their sales organizations primarily, but also work with their marketing organizations, their customer success or account management teams to ensure that there is a consistent framework, that they are all working from the same kind of foundation without robbing them of the authenticity of being an individual. To help those organizations scale, to help them get rid of storytelling that comes in any type of sales process, right? Salespeople love to tell ourselves stories. We want to remove that and give them a very clear, concise, and simple approach to having conversations and uncovering what someone else finds valuable so they can connect what they can bring to the table to that vision.
Oh, very interesting. You had mentioned, and maybe we'll get further into this later into our conversation today, but you mentioned that salespeople love to tell stories.
Yeah.
Are you referring to like those negative stories or set up what the expectations are, or is there something else to that?
No, it's more like if anybody's ever done a sales review, or even I run my own business, but I'm a 100% independent I'm 100% commission sales rep, right? So we have a tendency when there's a deal, a prospect maybe, or a deal in the pipeline to say, if a manager or somebody says, hey, why has this been in the pipeline for 6 months? Why should I believe it's going to close now? You might hear something like, Warren and I had this great conversation over Zoom. Turns out he likes the same coffee I do. We have the same interests. Great guy. We just really bonded. It's going to close this quarter, right? Versus, do you have the critical elements of connection, vision match, understanding to get that deal across the line? So we have a tendency, salespeople have a tendency to have happy ears and tell themselves these stories, which is a natural part of the human existence, quite honestly. But in a sales situation, we want to get to a point where we can just be very binary. What information do we have? What don't we have? What do we need to get across the finish line? So when I talk about stories, it's that story we tell ourselves about, this deal's really one I should be chasing, or maybe it's not.
Yeah, that's so true, right? Sometimes and from a sales perspective, we lean to more of those optimistic stories as well.
Absolutely.
So what's the greatest obstacle that your clients encounter?
So it can be a range, right? So normally when we first start talking with a client, we hear anything from, I've got, 20 people on the sales team to 500 people on the sales team. They're all doing something different. So there's no way for the business to get eyes on kind of a predictable pipeline or forecast. We might hear that deal sizes are shrinking, that my people are selling too much on feature functionality versus true value and business impact. We might hear that, the length of the sales cycle is far too long and it's dragging, and we're losing to competitors. We're not able to competitively differentiate effectively in the marketplace. So those are typically where the conversations start, right? These are typically the problems that we'll hear at the beginning. And then as we go on, it turns out that they have even greater challenges or obstacles that they aren't even articulating. Like, our marketing engine isn't aligned with our revenue funnel. We don't have the right assets. Some of our people are much more comfortable with a relationship-based type of sale rather than a strategic type of sale. And so the primary obstacle is that consistency of sales motion or communication motion across an organization of any size. I have clients that have 10 employees to, we work with clients that have thousands of employees. And it's very consistent that they don't have any way to drive consistency across the organization or in their buying experience, let's say.
So then is it systems, like physical systems, like if it's a CRM and just the standard operating procedures that you tweak to help your clients get results?
That's a great question. So I like to say that if tech was going to solve the human problem, it would have done it by now. And so we have some technology solutions, and we can tweak and we can provide suggestions on how to optimize the tech stack that a customer may have invested in. We're really kind of technology agnostic in that regard. But what we're focused on is more of a behavioral framework, a conversational framework. Everybody naturally has conversations, but to be consciously competent, to be aware of the information exchange that has happened, to be focused on that conversation, especially given what's going on in the world today, can be a bit of a challenge. And so with the framework that we implement, it is designed to ensure that even on your worst day, you're still having those conversations at an optimal level to move a sales process along, to drive alignment internally, even to make sure that you are consistently connecting to someone else's view of value. So it's really more of we can implement it into any tech as a reminder, but it really is more of a communication framework and a way to engage with another human being effectively and consistently type of framework.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I would totally agree. Chad referenced to, if it was process, it would have been a long time ago, because that's what we lean towards, right? Leaders go to, like, if we just fix this productivity issue or this system, then everything will go together. But the human element is involved, and that's where the challenge plays.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Everybody has some level of CRM, whether it's homegrown or Salesforce or Dynamics or something. Most people have some type of systematic outreach, whether it be Outreach.io, SalesLoft, Inside Sales. Right? There's all of these technology pieces, and they help in a myriad of ways. Right? They help augment our memory. They become a great way to run analysis and reports. But what companies have a tendency to shy away from or be worried about is making sure that the people are operating at an optimal level. And as a result of that, they're not providing them tools. They train them. And this is, I ran into this when I was an executive running sales and marketing teams for companies. We bring them in and we say, look how cool we are. Look at all this cool stuff we can do. And then we're surprised when they go out in the world and that's all they want to talk about, rather than how do I listen? How do I uncover what someone else is? How do I kind of be that solution Sherpa, let's say? How do I get them across the line to solve the problems that's really motivating them? That's really a behavioral challenge, one that's compounded by the fact that we live in a world where, especially now that we're all working from home, or most of us are, we're inundated with data all of the time. Not only work data, but Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of these things are proving to be distractions and impacting our focus. And so what we're providing is a framework or a lens through which you can communicate and connect effectively to have that mutual vision match of what an ideal solution would look like and the value that it can provide to the organization.
Yeah, that's an excellent point of view. So how are you advising your clients then to pivot during this business climate? Because it's constantly changing, as we kind of visited earlier before we started.
Yeah. So some of the things that we've talked about haven't really changed, and some have, right? So for example, one of our primary beliefs is that people buy from people. And so this is people that move them away from problems and towards solutions. So this is a human interaction, right? So that hasn't really changed. But how we approach individuals, we're really looking at them, when COVID first hit and there was the underlying anxiety that everybody was experiencing. We recommended that people pivoted from like a true sales approach to much more of a service approach. How can I help you? How can I help you with what you're dealing with right now? I may not have a solution, but I have a big network. We know a lot of people. We have a lot of partners. We have great channel partners, whatever it may be. Let us just see if we can help. Right. So that was kind of the first 4 to 8 weeks of what we've been going through. And then what you noticed when you started to talk to people was they got really tired of being reminded about the situation. So it wasn't, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, Warren. You get emails that are like, hope you're doing well in these uncertain times. If I get one more of those, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like, oh, yes, it's uncertain times. We've gotten to that point, but we have to soldier on. We have to carry on. And so now it's more about, okay, let's get back to focusing on what are the problems they're wrestling with? How have those problems changed as a result of this dynamic business environment that we're in? And how do we approach those with an empathetic and authentic way of communicating so they don't think we're only concerned about the bottom dollar? It really is more important to stress and connect with that human relationship side of it. So our pivots have been to make sure not only can your teams operate well in a virtual environment, because there are certain different skill sets that have to happen there, but also to really double down on this is about a human connection, right? And as everybody's isolated, that becomes a little bit more difficult. So it kind of has, kind of done a trend line head down over the anxiety. And now it's back to, I don't want to say business as usual, because it's definitely not, but more focus on the business and the problems in an empathetic and consistent way. Again, that's where one of the frameworks that we provide, and teach enables through questioning that we've thought about how to make sure that those types of conversations are happening. Those are kind of the two pivots that we've been focusing on. Who knows what's going to happen next week, but based on what's going on, right? But right now, we're seeing those be very successful with our clients, and it's been a joy to engage with those individuals and those companies that see this as an opportunity to invest in and understand how they can get better at doing what they do.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's where a lot of businesses are heading now. They were definitely showing up as this service side, which is so important, but being in tune, but trying to now to keep the process moving forward and engage, but having this still right tune. I don't think it's the same tone that we had maybe last year in November, December, right? But definitely needing to move forward.
Absolutely.
So managing kind of within your background, which is really interesting, because you've been leading sales and marketing teams to success for over 20 years using a proven and predictable value selling framework.
Yes.
What's one insight that you can share with our listeners to help them increase their sales?
It's never about the salesperson, and it's not about what you're selling, right? It is about uncovering what is the problem, what's the primary thing the individual you're talking to is focused on, and helping them solve the problems that are getting in the way. We have a tendency to unleash sales professionals, and they have a tendency to talk a lot, right? They have a tendency to be much more outgoing. Introvert salespeople can be oftentimes more effective, but in general, they're very outgoing. They want to talk a lot. And so the first thing I would say is, and the biggest thing is listen and ask questions. Be genuinely curious about the problems that are causing this individual you're talking to be interested in what your potential solution is. A lot of times somebody will come and say, hey, I think I want, MQL, marketing qualified lead, will come through the website, be assigned to a sales rep. Sales rep will be like, oh, this is what you're looking for? Well, this is what we can do. All right, well, take a breath. Let's step back. Why do they think they need this? What problems do they think they're going to solve? And if they can solve those problems, what does that allow them to achieve? And let's just have a conversation. So that natural curiosity of kind of the starting point of this relationship. Why now? Why change now? And asking those questions just dramatically changes the interaction between a salesperson and a prospect or a client, or even, quite honestly, internally. Oftentimes we don't hear people having those types of conversations internally in an organization either.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's really drives the definition really of listening. So listen to listen instead of listen to respond.
Yes.
The question is the why, because that's part of the element of listening, to figure out what is the result they're trying to get. Because maybe they, sometimes clients really don't know what they're trying to achieve. They think what it is. But until you uncover the true reason why we're having this conversation, you're not going to be able to solve or the benefit they're looking for.
Absolutely.
So what was a key strategies that contributed to your success building your business?
That's a great question as well. So I went from being a corporate executive, running marketing and sales teams, to starting my own business. So Value Selling, for those that don't know, Value Selling Associates, think of it kind of as a franchise operation, right? Corporate owns the IP. There are 53 of us that are certified to do what I do around the globe. We do it in 15 different languages and all of that stuff. But when you come in, you're a one-man show, one man, one woman show. It's it. So you go from being an executive, having a team and maybe even an assistant, to you're doing it all. And so the key to the success that I've been able to accomplish in my business was the consistency of execution. Was every day, I have a tendency to time block my calendar. 45 to 50% of every day is time blocked out. I'm going to do prospecting. I'm going to do marketing. I'm going to do current client upsell. I'm going to prepare myself for the next day, and getting in the mindset of I'm going to be completely focused on this one thing. And I'm never going to miss a time block, or I'm never going to miss a prospecting block, or any of that. And just, I hate to call it the grind, but it is the natural work that has to go into it. And so not being afraid to, in the quote unquote golden hours, like 9 to 5 or whatever, when other people are up, that's all time blocked out. And I would dedicate an hour before and 2 hours after every day for analysis or preparation, right? What worked today, what didn't, which of my outreach, which of my prospecting resonated, what types of marketing things were being interacted with, what conversations have I been able to initiate on social media, and are they opening doors? Are they opening pathways? So that consistent application of the framework, and I honestly was just using the same framework that we teach and install at companies, was using the same approach. The mindset was the key, was that I'm going to do this. I know what it's going to take. And I know if I do these right things and I do them consistently, that I will achieve the goals that I've set for myself.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that insight. One thing even though I think most of our listeners know what time blocking really consists of, can you kind of just give a high overview of what time blocking is?
So everybody has a tendency to think that speed equals productivity, right? So we're busy. I've answered 4 emails, 5 Slack messages. I responded to something on LinkedIn, but that it's more like triage. It's more reaction than being proactive. By time blocking and owning your calendar, managing your calendar, I'm talking about putting, if I'm going to prospect and I'm going to do let's say I'm going to do a call block. I'm going to block out 60 minutes on my calendar. Everything else gets shut down. Nothing else is open. No email, no Slack. I'm not answering the phone. I'm using the phone to dial. I'm going to get in the right mindset to be completely focused on that activity that I've blocked out for that amount of time, because I can be more efficient, more effective, more confident. I can deliver more impact and value to the individuals that I talk to. Or maybe I'm setting up a 45-minute block where I'm going to do analysis on the marketing results from our last campaign. And I'm going to do nothing but look at those results only for 45 minutes. And if I don't get done what I need to, I'll set up another block. But it is making sure that you set aside, and the average that we kind of work with clients on is 45 to 50% of every day should be time blocked out for this type of focused activity. If you can do that, the productivity goes through the roof. And as a result, the results go through the roof. The human brain is not capable of multitasking, right? The research is in, the debate's over. People like to think they're multitasking, but they're not. What they're doing is context switching. That's actually a higher energy drain than just staying focused on one thing at a time. And if you do that, then your ability to, I don't want to say master it, because, you know, according to Gladwell, it takes 10,000 hours to master anything. But to get proficient at it, it happens faster, and you can be much more efficient, much more productive. And that still leaves you, you know, 65 to 50% of your day to respond to somebody else's email, to, you know, have a meeting with a coworker or a business partner, or if you're at a big organization, do the internal meetings with your managers or whatever it may be. But it ensures that we are setting aside time, dedicated time every day to focus on those activities which generate the results we're responsible for generating for the organization, whether that be revenue from a sales perspective or content or campaigns from a marketing perspective or whatever, works across the board.
Yeah, I think when somebody adopts that, a lot of times when I'm working with clients around time blocking, I get that pushback of like, that's too constraining. I have to respond to emails, or people need to get a hold of me, or but what they find is once they really adopt it, like just like you said, Chad, their productivity increases.
Oh, without a doubt. And it's the fear-based response. Like if I don't respond to a Slack message right away, I'm not being a good employee, or I'm not being a good partner. The world's not going to end if for 60 minutes you don't respond to something. I know we're in this quick kind of culture, but at the end of the day, unless it is an absolute emergency, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I'm guaranteed that most of the executives or high-level sales, they're not getting paid to answer emails.
Right.
There's other HBAs that they should be working on.
Absolutely. They're focused on driving revenue. Like I tell clients, look, I never fired anybody who said, I can't make that team meeting because that's what my call block is, because I'm going to go do prospect. Okay, cool. I'll follow up with you later. Right. Like that's what I hired you to do. The management portion of it, the coaching portion of it, that's kind of surrounding that.
Right. Yeah, and part of that, and certainly with some of our listeners today, really managing their brand. They might have a team that they're working with or responsible for. So managing that brand is really important in today's environment. So I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you keep the sales team from not killing your brand? Bottom line.
Brand is becoming, especially now, we're seeing every day, there's a new news report of a brand evolving, right? Because of what's going on with diversity in the world today. The key is communication. The key is making sure that you're not doing a knee-jerk reaction, that you have a strategy to achieve some goal. Like what is, Simon Sinek will say, what's the why? Start with the why and work your way out, right? Well, okay, how do we want to be perceived? What kind of brand do we want to be perceived as? And making sure the communication internally is consistent, and that you have a plan to evolve all of the supporting assets, from website to presentations to blog posts, right? That you have a plan that is clearly communicated, and you're not also at the same time overwhelming the sales team, right? What we don't want to do is show up every week and say, okay, this week you can't say this, or this week you can't say that. We need to give them buy-in in the brand. They need to be part of that development. They need to surveys, ask them questions, show them whatever it may be, get them wrapped into that brand so that when they go out, they're representing that brand the correct way. Too many times organizations look at sales specifically as kind of a burn and churn kind of organization. If they don't hit their numbers, I'll just go get more salespeople. And if that's the type of sales culture you create, then you have a higher percentage chance of those individuals in the time that they are there doing damage to your brand, because they're not incented or encouraged to take the time to understand what is the organization that they're working for. Like, for example, value selling, when I want to say it was year and a half ago, we took a very specific approach, and I worked with corporate on this to evolve the brand to be extremely diverse, to be much more diverse, to be much more inclusive, to understand that the individuals and companies that we were working with were evolving, the social norms were evolving, and we wanted to be kind of ahead of the curve. And we put together a very precise plan where the new brand was being communicated out in steps, and people were encouraged to, through Slack rooms or polls or whatever, to jump into the conversation so they understood not only what we were doing, but why we were doing it.
Mhm.
And I think that becomes important. It doesn't necessarily need to be dictatorial. It needs to be much more of a combination of perspectives and have people's buy-in. And I think that becomes the key to making sure your frontline contact, customer contact types of people are representing the brand in a way that is beneficial to the overall vision.
Yeah, that's excellent. So I believe that success leaves clues, and one of those clues are the books that successful people read. So what are some authors that have influenced you, Chad, in the course of your career?
Yeah, so it's funny. It's going to be a really diverse list. So I'm a big proponent of self-improvement. Now that might seem odd if anybody that's listening knows me or has seen me, because I'm 6'2", 250 pounds of Harley riding in my spare time, kind of biker persona. But I'm a big proponent of self-improvement. So if anybody's heard of Gary John Bishop, he wrote a book called Un-F Yourself. He's got a series of books, right? So that's a great way to get out of your own head. From a mindset standpoint, the last one I just finished was called Psyched Up by Daniel McGinn. And that's all about the mental mindset, right? I love what can I do to make sure I have the mental fortitude, the mental perspective, and the mental focus to be performing at my optimal level. You could go back in time, and there was a book on storytelling that was written about Pixar by Jonathan Katz, I believe, which is an odd business book, but is an amazing read from how do I create a story and a culture and kind of a phenomenon there. And then, of course, they're the obvious ones that everybody's probably heard of. I read Brene Brown a lot. I've read all of the Simon Sinek stuff. And then Todd Capone, a gentleman by the name of Todd Capone, has a book called The Transparency Sale. And Todd, phenomenal guy. And so that's another one that I like about being that transparent, authentic type of individual in a sales process. That's just a short list. I'm constantly reading. Right now I'm on a neuroscience kick. There's a book called Sleights of Mind, which talks about the psychology, and I forget the authors off the top of my head. But it talks about the psychology, the neuroscience that makes magic tricks possible. Like how are you using the way the brain is wired against itself to create these illusions? And that I find very insightful as well. So sorry, that's a big passion thing for me. I read all the time. So there's a lot. I could give you a long list of books, but those are some of the ones that have over time hit me the hardest or are things that I have engaged in the last 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that list. That's a clue also just in itself for our listeners that you're constantly reading. Like it's not like that's just a clue. Like you don't reach this level of I can stop reading or absorbing new information or figuring out the next strategy.
Oh, we always get, there's so much. I started reading young as a kid, right? I was one of those that would lock myself in the room, and I went through all of the, Lord of the Rings and all, and I just consumed and consumed and consumed. The beauty of it is there's so much new information that comes out, so much new perspective. Like, why would you, if you're not reading or doing something, listening to a podcast, engaging in some way to feed your head, I think you're really doing yourself a disservice, because if you're not constantly growing, you're going to get outpaced really fast.
Yeah, exactly right. There's no neutral in life. It's either moving forward or you're going to slide backwards.
That's right.
So what does the future hold for you? Are you working on any special projects?
Right now I am in the process of starting the first draft of a book. But that's based off of, I run a podcast as well. And we for 3 years have asked guests kind of the same standard 2 questions at the end of every interview. And so we're compiling that data and doing some analysis on that. For me, it was, we had a big pivot when COVID hit. We've always done some level of virtual training. I'd say maybe 10% of the business was virtual. But now, of course, everything is 100%. So we actually did a huge pivot in March we kind of read the tea leaves, and we got together with corporate, and we invested in completely redesigning our virtual offering, so that it's actually driving better results than some of our in-person training. And we've got some clients who are just going to say, you know what, we're not going to do in-person anymore. The future is kind of mastering that and the scheduling, because it's a totally different approach. But to see what happens, see what happens next year and see what the next pivot brings. I'm a little tired from the one we just did, but
Right.
being prepared for the next one, because there's always going to be one. There's always going to be one. And just continuing to connect with people and continually learn and evolve the way that we enable organizations is kind of my next 12-month vision. Get a draft of the book out, continue to work with not only existing clients, but new clients to help them get through these times, and then see what other opportunities present themselves and be ready to pounce.
Yeah, excellent. So if our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to be able to reach out?
Yeah. So the easiest way would be to follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You can't miss me. It's in / Chad Sanderson, all one word.
Okay.
I'll even go one step further. If somebody really wants to talk, I'll give you my phone number. It's 303-834-5932. I still pick up cold calls. I still believe the phone is one of the most powerful tools in our ability to connect individuals. And you can always shoot me an email at chad.sanderson@valueselling.com.
Okay, great. I can add all of that, or in some of it. Do you want their phone number in the show notes as well?
Sure,
or?
Absolutely. Have them call.
So I'll throw all of that in, your phone number, email, and then LinkedIn profile, so people will be able to reach out to you.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, sharing your strategies and tips, helping our listeners to break through those obstacles to achieve success.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you again, Warren. It's been an absolute joy to be here.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So this is your host, Warren Wandling, saying until next time, be resilient,